Okay, Steve, quick question. Last time you searched for information online, did you ask Google or ChatGPT?
Actually, AnnieLaurie, I've started going straight to ChatGPT and Perplexity because I prefer the summarized answers compared to a lot of links. It's a lot more conversational.
Exactly. And that's the shift that's happening right now. More people are searching for answers rather than just links. But here's a big question for our CEOs listening and their teams. Is your marketing ready for this shift?
Welcome back to the Growth Minded Marketing Podcast. I'm Steve Phipps.
And I'm AnnieLaurie Walters. We help growth-minded CEOs and their teams simplify marketing, scale their businesses, and lead with clarity.
Today, we're diving into something called Answer Engine Optimization, or AEO. Now, this is a new layer on top of traditional search engine optimization, or SEO, and it's something that a lot of CEOs aren't aware of or thinking about yet, but they should be.
Okay, Steve, let's start here. What exactly is answer engine optimization, and why should business leaders and CEOs care?
Well, CEOs have spent years working with their teams and agencies to optimize their websites to rank in Google search. And that's been generating links and backlinks, keywords, you know the drill. But now there's a shift that we're seeing from traditional search engines like Google and Bing and a list of different search pages, results, to AI-driven answer engines. So think about tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft's Copilot or Perplexity.
And here's the key difference. SEO, traditional SEO, focuses on algorithms that rank websites and provide links. But answer engine optimization, or AEO, as we will refer to it often in this podcast, is about optimizing your content to be directly quoted or summarized in an AI-generated answer. So instead of a link, your business becomes part of a narrative answer.
Exactly. And if you're not optimizing for AI-driven searches, you risk getting left behind, seeing a drop in your organic traffic. And we all know AI isn't going anywhere. And CEOs need to recognize the new way that buyers are seeking information.
Now, Steve, I've been noticing clients getting confused about this. Traditional SEO is still essential. AEO isn't replacing it. It's actually enhancing it. It's adding something to what we're already doing.
Absolutely. And there's been a lot of confusion around that. It's about aligning your content to answer the questions that your customers and buyers are asking. And this is in line with what we've been saying for a long time, especially as you think about what's called the Big Five content strategy. And we can put a link to that article in the show notes so you can get more information about those 5 topics that you want to write about that are relevant for your buyers. And when your content is answering the right questions thoroughly, it's attractive both to humans and to the AI bots.
Let's dive deeper into something critical in this AEO space, and that's schema markup. Okay, don't let your eyes glaze over when I say the word schema markup, because yes, it's highly technical, but it's important to have a functional understanding of why it's important when we talk about AEO. We've talked about it on our blog. You can check the show notes for a link that dives deep into what we're talking about when we talk about schema. But Google actually has very famously said, schema isn't a direct ranking signal or factor in the traditional SEO sense. So when Google has its algorithm and it's looking for certain signals in content and on websites, both the written part and the technical part behind the scenes you can't see, and it uses those signals, these algorithms use those signals to decide which content it's going to put first on a search results page. Now, there was a lot of debate several years running, actually, not just last year, but several years before that, regarding if schema had anything to do with a search engine result page placement on page 1. And Google has come out to say it does not. But they're talking about the search engine result page, the returning of links. They're not talking about the summarized responses that this new AI generative search is starting to provide for us.
Schema helps AI clearly understand your content. It's like a translator for AI engines. And so an example of a schema would be an FAQ schema. It's specified to specific types of content.
Yes, and you can check the article on our website for even a picture of what it looks like in the code if you need that extra clarity. But yes, it's literally code that a human reading your blog would never see, but that a search algorithm or an AI bot looking for citations and answers to people's questions, it basically tells the bot, this is an FAQ. Here is the FAQ. So for CEOs and marketing teams who are evaluating their online presence, if you're seeing any kind of dip in traffic due to these new AI generated results that are popping up on all the search engines and in the AI tools, take a look at your website's code and see what kind of schema you're using. People are using schema and have used schema for other reasons, and it might not be as detailed as it could be. So while your person may say, oh, yeah, we use schema on our website, ask them to look specifically for FAQ schema, author schema. And we will drop a link in our show notes to a resource by an organization, schema.org, that you can put a link in their tool and it will tell you exactly what schema is on the page. So that's one of the quickest ways to tell if you have all the different schema that you could be putting on your page on the page. And it will quickly identify for you the areas where you could go back in and just add some code. To me, this is some of the easiest low-hanging fruit that you can grab onto if you're trying to have your content rank in sources like ChatGPT.
I think it's important to note, Laurie, that this is not a silver bullet. There are multiple facets to being cited and being listed and referenced to in the AI results, the AI summaries. But this is an important one that is often overlooked. So I just want to clarify that if you go do this, it doesn't mean you're going to all of a sudden skyrocket to the top. You also have to have really good content. There are other facets to it, but this is an important piece.
I'm glad you clarified that because there is a lot of really great content out there that might not get the attention it deserves because it's missing this somewhat small piece of code on the back end of their website. But on the other hand, if you have terrible content that's not actually accomplishing anything, then adding schema to it isn't going to make it better. It's like putting lipstick on a pig.
But for the good content, this could be enough to help push it up just enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It would help you be more competitive in this new search ecosystem that AI generated search is creating as we speak. So this means companies need to be very intentional about the quality, accuracy, and accessibility of their content. This isn't just about ranking on page 1 of Google anymore. It's about being credible enough to get cited in AI search results.
And another critical part of this overall shift is AI citations. Now, we wrote about this recently. AI engines like Copilot, ChatGPT, with browsing capabilities, cite their sources. And being cited by AI is becoming a new digital marketing / SEO metric. And so while we're talking about this, another thing to keep in mind is overall page authority. So you can use any sort of an SEO tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs. They will assign a website, they will assign pages an authority score. And this is a combination of different factors. But basically, it's a single number that represents how trustworthy and how authoritative your page, your site is in the eyes of the search engines. And, Google has their algorithm that they use to calculate some type of a score. It's never, you can't get access to it. So it's a mystery, but they effectively rank pages and websites. And so that can be a quick metric as to how well your site is doing. And just know it takes a really long time to move that because, again, it's a combination of all of these different activities. Credibility, again, page authority could be an indicator of that. It's based on clear, structured data. It's your backlinks. It's the technical build of your site. It's the schema that we were talking about. It's the structure of the pages. Again, there's all sorts of different things that go into and influence your authority, your credibility. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to structure your data, create content that answers buyers' questions, in order to help these AI tools identify your business as an authority.
Yes. And also wanted to mention when we're talking about the best practices a business can do to increase and establish their credibility through their online presence is to not only write the wonderful, helpful content that answers buyers' questions, but also case studies and use cases and examples of how your service or your product is helping people in real life. And I think that is another important thing that a lot of times you might see on a website, a whole separate section on case studies. And that's important to have and do, but also to embed those examples within your blog content and your content marketing strategies. If you can have a goal to place some sort of direct connection to how what you're saying has helped someone you've served, that is another really strong way to raise your credibility and your authority. That goes into the EAT framework that we've talked about some on previous podcasts. Steve, do you mind just giving a quick rundown on what the EAT framework is?
So the EAT framework is what Google shared a few years ago in terms of the type of content that it's going to consider trustworthy and worth ranking. There's an article on our website that talks about that. And so EAT is experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And I'm not going to elaborate on that now. You can read about it. You can Google search it or ChatGPT search it and get an overview. But basically, it's creating content that is authoritative. It answers your buyer's questions and it's helpful. It's not a sales pitch. It's genuinely trying to be helpful in your area of expertise. That's the kind of content that Google's looking for because that's the type of content your buyers are looking for.
Right. And I mention it in conjunction with this discussion on how to rank in AI tools, because even though EAT is something designed for Google search engine results page ranks, also, when you are following the principles of EAT, it will increase the confidence and the authority and the credibility that your website has. And so when you're checking those boxes, you're also getting the benefit of being seen as an authority to the AI search tools when they are searching.
You know, the funny thing is, we talk a lot in our marketing framework about informing with content, answering your buyer's questions, educating, becoming that trusted voice in your space. And if you've ever read StoryBrand by Donald Miller, that's a key principle is establishing your authority, your credibility, your trustworthiness. And really at the heart of this, yes, there are technical things that you want to do like schema, there's backlink generation, but at the heart of it is, does your content answer your buyer's questions in a way that's unbiased, it's educational, it's authoritative, it demonstrates your expertise, your credibility. And if you're not doing that, all the technical setup in the world isn't going to help you because the AI engines are designed to function as a human would. And it's looking for websites and content that is clear, it's establishing trust and credibility, and it's providing meaningful answers.
Steve, let's talk about how AI searches are changing user behavior. When would someone choose to use ChatGPT or Perplexity over a Google search?
Typically, what we're seeing is that people turn to AI when they're looking for a summary, contextual information quickly. So it could be strategic advice or comparing two different services or companies, or they're looking for a detailed topic summary. You know, so you can think about if it's something that you would typically go to multiple websites to gather information and consolidate that into a report or to a summary, or you're making a comparison. So you're reading over here, you're watching this video, you're doing this. Those are the types of scenarios where AI is super helpful because it will go and do that for you so that you can review the summary of it as opposed to having to go and research it up a dozen different websites yourself. Let Chat go do that. Let Perplexity go do that instead.
B2B companies have traditionally long sales cycles, buying cycles. Someone looking for a product or service in the B2B space may do research on this topic for months. Give us an example of how a buyer in that position might use ChatGPT or Perplexity to help them research a specific type of product or service. Like, what would that look like?
So part of it's going to depend on a couple of things. Part of it's going to depend on what's their experience with the service they're looking for. If this is a service that they've researched before, they already know who the players in that space are, then they might start by doing a comparison. They might go to search and say, give me a comparison of vendor A, B, and C. Find reviews, find examples of the work they've done, and they go and they let ChatGPT to do that initial research for them. For somebody that may be new to that type of service, let's use a startup as an example here. Let's say the business has gotten to the point where they need to hire a bookkeeper and they've never hired a bookkeeper before. I know this isn't the long sales cycle that a B2B company would have or that a lot have, but it explains the point. At that point, they might start asking questions of what does a bookkeeper do? So the questions would start off more top of the funnel, basic education, and then they could start digging into, okay, well, who are the bookkeepers who might work in my industry near me? Or give me a comparison of these different options, or how do I find a trustworthy bookkeeper? And then as they get further into the funnel, they're making different comparisons. But all of that could be done in a conversation with ChatGPT or Perplexity without ever having to actually go and scan a bunch of websites. And in that scenario, and in the case of a bigger, more complex sales cycle, again, you could be gathering some of this data, pulling industry resources and research and summarizing it. I mean, that would be another example of, in a longer B2B, you have some spaces where you have research firms like Gartner that put out annual reports and summaries, and they're indexing of the vendors in a particular space. And that's one of our clients. They're mixed in there in this specific industry with Gartner. And so it could be taking those industry resources that Gartner publishes. You take that, you put that into ChatGPT. You could pull other information, research documents you pull from other firms and experts and white papers and all these other data sources, and you put it all into ChatGPT. And so now it's not just about researching online, but it's consolidating and summarizing a lot of this information in a single source. So again, it's not just what's happening on your website, it's a bigger landscape, if you will. But that's where some of these AI tools can put a lot of that research into a centralized place. And it can also reduce, the person who's doing the research, it's faster, and they can get more information from AI in general to interpret the data, filter it, etc.
This also reminds me of a point to make about having diversified content on your website, because as you're describing, it's when a user is using a tool like ChatGPT to do research on a major buying decision, they might not just say, hey, go search the internet and tell me what you find. They may have collected a white paper from your site and a white paper from someone else's site and some other content reports, like you mentioned with Gartner. They might have all of that downloaded on the computer. You can download that back up to ChatGPT and have it analyze all of this and say, here's what I'm looking for based on all of this data I've provided you. What is going to be the best solution? And so that makes the case for having a lot of different types of content on your website, so that when buyers are coming to do the 80% of research they're going to do before they ever pick up a phone and call you, then they will see, oh, I can download this, I can grab onto this and do that deep dive into the research before they are going to go and make this really expensive buying decision. So I think that is a really interesting point to make in the context of this, that having different types of content on your website is going to help as buyer behavior changes in the way that they research products and services before they actually call a salesperson. Steve, one more thing I'd like to call out before we move on to our next section is that when you think about traditional SEO, search engine optimization, the backbone of SEO is keyword research. You are looking for the keywords that people are typing into the search bar in Google or Bing or whatever their tool they're using is. You are trying to have specific keywords in the right places on your website so that when search algorithms crawl the internet looking to match the best content to the term provided, your content has the best chance of ranking on page one. That's a very distilled version of the content side of traditional SEO. The point that I really want to make, that I hope really lands with our listeners, is that AI-driven search isn't looking for keywords. It's not built to look for keywords. That is not the point of it. So you have this entire SEO industry that has been based on keyword research and having the right keywords in the right places and having the great content and meeting those EAT standards that we mentioned before. But AI isn't looking for keywords. So does that mean you abandon keyword research? No, it doesn't. that all is still important. And Google still is the go-to source for searching over AI today in July of 2025. But think about the breakneck speed that AI is changing the world that we live in. You have an opportunity now to add this new layer on top of what you're already doing. You're already doing the keyword research. You're already writing the good content. Now, let's make sure that you're just doing a few more steps to be found and cited by these other AI tools, because now you have this opportunity to go out in what we would call blue ocean. This is a blue ocean opportunity for you to stake your ground in this new digital ecosystem where your buyers are searching for information that you have. Your competitors are probably not doing this yet. So this is a great opportunity for you to get out in front of all of that and not just rely on keywords to be found, but to structure your content and write it in such a way that is conversational, relatable, and informative, but also structured technically so that it can be identified and returned and cited in an AI search result.
And AnnieLaurie, before we finish on this section here, I think it's important to note that this is a quickly changing landscape. And know that ChatGPT, Google, they don't just come out and say, here's exactly what you need to do. Now, AI is close. You could ask it what you need to do on your website to show up in its recommendations, and it'll give you guidance. But this is an ever-changing landscape, and it's going to continue to change. So this is something as a CEO, as a marketer, to pay attention to on a recurring, ongoing basis, because we might be looking at something different 6 months from now based on what's happening. So you got to stay in tune with this. Nobody owns the right formula for figuring this all out. And there are a lot of people who are listening and learning and testing and experimenting. And so just pay attention. And again, don't be surprised when what's working today isn't working 6 months from now, and it's something different.
And that's a great segue into our next section, because one way that you can stay on top of it is paying attention to what the people testing these new tools are saying. And Steve, you're one of those people. You've been an early adopter of AI. You have tested multiple tools. You have experimented in various ways with using AI. But what I'd like to call out is that you've spoken at several Chamber of Commerce events here in Memphis lately about AI and marketing, and they've been widely attended. People want to know how AI is changing marketing. So tell us a little bit about that. What are you hearing from the CEOs and the business owners and leaders who attend the events that you speak at? Like, what are they asking, and where is this on their radar?
It's a mixed bag, AnnieLaurie. One of the questions I typically ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in terms of your comfort level and your experience of using AI? And still half the people in the room are typically 5 or less. They've dabbled in it. Maybe they've used it once or twice. They're using Microsoft 365 and Copilot's now built in, so they've tested it out. Some of the CEOs, the business owners, the marketers are intrigued. They can see the potential, but they're overwhelmed. They don't have the bandwidth to try to figure it out. There are some who are really unaware of how much and how quickly this is changing, especially in the area of buyer behavior, especially in terms of the drop that sites are going to see in organic traffic, because now AI is giving the summary results and people don't have to click through to your site to get the answer. I mean, we're seeing this. And, right now really is a big opportunity, because again, in these conversations, I would say less than 20% of the people in the room are a 9 or a 10 in terms of their comfort level, their experience, where they're using it regularly and they're good with it. They're proficient with it. And so, as you mentioned earlier, this is a unique opportunity. I think you can say this is a blue ocean type moment where, in a lot of spaces, if you're the first one or one of the first in your space of your competitors to start using these tools, to start making the shifts, then you're going to see the fruit of that, and you're going to be in a better position than some of your competitors that are unaware.
I was actually having this conversation with another member of our team who is our web developer. And we were just talking about how even with the AI search results, like we're talking, this podcast is all about how to get your content to be featured in AI generated search results, right? So we were talking about how even with that, it's the way AI is changing the landscape. When you're in ChatGPT, if ChatGPT is pulling from your content and they're even citing your content and providing a link back to your content, like what are the chances the person's going to click that link? He's thinking about it in terms of like tracking traffic. How would a Google GA4 track the traffic from a ChatGPT click back to your website and things like that. We're just talking about how it's, when you just think about users and how users interact with content, it's probably not going to be as big of it's probably not going to be as large a volume of traffic coming back to your website from a ChatGPT link that someone clicked. But what it does is it continues to support and underscore your branding efforts. And one thing that we've talked about a lot as a team is one way to combat zero-click search is, like you said, zero-click search, even just take Google alone. That in and of itself is causing organic traffic to dip. And so branding is becoming even more important. Social media engagement is becoming even more important. So my question for you, Steve, is for someone who may be listening who attended one of your speaking events lately, what would you say to them about where to focus? If I can't rely on SEO or even AEO to be the driver of traffic that it used to be, where should I be focusing my attention next? Or in addition to, not in place of, but what thing do I need to be elevating that I might not be doing right now or not be doing enough of that I need to do more of?
So I think it's parallel tracks here. So I want to run this parallel tracks. The first thing I would say is make sure that you have a clear understanding of who your target audience is. And this goes back to strategy. Do you have a clear definition of your target audience, the problems that they face that you solve? And then do you have a clear understanding of the questions that they are asking? If you do, then you need to make sure that you are creating content that answers those questions. Because for a lot of folks, the problem isn't that they don't have schema. Yes, you need to address that, but they don't have a content strategy that's creating the information for the website, for social media, the videos that genuinely answers buyers' questions, builds trust, and establishes you as the authority in your space. If you don't have that, schema is not going to save the day. So start there. Now, if you do have that, you want to then make sure that you're evaluating your current content strategy, your website strategy, have the schema markup, include comprehensive FAQs, and just make sure that your content is following the EAT framework and use AI to streamline this process. There are a lot of different ways that you can leverage that so that it's a powerful ally. Hey, this is Steve. If this conversation about answer engine optimization is making your head spin, you are not alone. We've talked to a lot of CEOs and marketing leaders who feel overwhelmed by all of these changes. They're happening so quickly. So here's the good news. You don't have to go this alone. You don't have to figure it all out on your own. Here at Wayfind Marketing, we offer focused marketing coaching tailored specifically for CEOs and marketing teams in the B2B space. In that process, we help you develop a clear strategy. We train your team on the latest AI-driven marketing practices and how to use AI tools to ensure that your content stands out in a crowded, noisy digital landscape. You can visit wayfindmarketing.com to schedule a call, and that's the first step in turning complexity into clarity.
Okay, Steve, let's wrap this up. AI-driven search isn't going away. It's accelerating. The businesses that start optimizing for it now will be miles ahead in the next few years.
Absolutely. Take action today. Don't wait. Head on to wayfindmarketing.com, grab our AI marketing guide, and you can also take our free marketing assessment and then get access to our marketing playbook. Don't wait until your competitors are already there.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Growth Minded Marketing Podcast. Keep listening. We've got more AI insights coming your way soon.